Let's be real. Everybody lies during draft weeks. Coaches, GMS agents, hell, even the players sometimes. But there's one truth that always holds up. If you're not actively reshaping your roster during the draft, you're falling behind. And the Chargers? They are very much in reshape mode. Look, everyone's focused on the first-round pick. What will Harbaugh do? Trade back? Take Bowers? Nab a receiver? But here's the thing that's flying under the radar. This roster is not finished. Not even close. There are moves coming, and I'm not just talking about rookies. I'm talking about actual NFL players on this team who could be on the block during the draft. Because this front office, Harbaugh and Joe Hortiz, they are not here to sit on a bloated depth chart with redundancies and mismatched fits. They're here to build the team they want. Physical, efficient, smart, cheap, where it makes sense. So in this video, I'm diving into potential trade candidates for the Chargers on or around draft day. Some of these might come as no surprise, others might sting a little. Let's get into it. What's up, Chargers fans? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Chargers. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about breaking down everything you need to know about the Bolts. Let's start in the trenches with Jamarie Salyer. Now, I like Salyer. Most fans do. The guy came in and held his own when Rashawn Slater went down, and he has shown real value as a swing lineman. He's played both tackle and guard, which in a Harbaugh offense that values versatility is a big plus. But here's the problem. The room is getting crowded. With the additions of Mekhi Becton and Andre James, plus Slater coming back healthy, you've got legitimate starting caliber players across the board. And as much as Harbaugh loves competition, the reality is this. Depth is great, but if that depth has trade value and you've got bigger needs elsewhere, you pick up the phone. There's a chance Salyer's on the move, not because the Chargers don't like him, but because he's a quality lineman on a rookie deal. And that's exactly the kind of asset teams will want in a draft day deal. Now, this is where things get interesting, and maybe a little more speculative. Mark Andrews. Yeah, that rumor made the rounds, and yes, the Chargers were mentioned. Now, before we spiral into fantasy trade machine land, let's get real. The odds of a deal for Andrews happening are slim. After the Tyler Conklin signing, and considering this is a deep, tight end class, the Chargers don't need a guy like Andrews, but want? That's a different story. Andrews would give Harbaugh a legitimate matchup nightmare, a reliable, experienced tight end who could be a difference maker in the red zone. The buzz about this mostly started with Bleacher Report throwing out a scenario, one where the Chargers send Jamarie Salyer and a 2025 fourth-rounder to Baltimore for Andrews. It's not a terrible trade on paper, but it hinges on one thing: how the Chargers feel about the tight ends in this draft. If their guy, maybe someone like Colston Loveland or Jatavian Sanders, is off the board, then yeah, I could see them exploring a veteran like Andrews, but if not, they're probably sticking with the plan and taking a rookie. Either way, it's one to keep an eye on. Let's shift back to the offensive line, because it's not just Salyer who could be in play. Zion Johnson. Now, this is where the conversation gets real uncomfortable for some fans. Zion was a first-round pick in 2022, and when you invest that kind of capital, you expect a long-term building block. The problem is, he hasn't quite lived up to that billing. Let's not pretend he's been a disaster. He started 49 of 51 possible games. He's durable, he's versatile, but he gave up 7 sacks last season, and by most metrics, 2023 was the worst year of his career. For a guy you drafted to anchor your interior line, that's a concern. You've got to ask, are the Chargers picking up his fifth-year option? As of right now, that seems unlikely, which means if they're not planning to extend him, why not see what he could bring back in a trade? There's also talk of trying him at center, which could work. He might be better there than at guard. But either way, if the front office doesn't view him as a long-term fit, he's a name that could come up in trade talks, either during the draft or afterward if a team loses a starter in camp. Now, the third name is Trey Pipkins. This one's simple. It comes down to money. Pipkins carries a $9.2 million cap hit this season. That's steep for a guy who, as of today, might not be a starter. With Becton in the mix and the possibility of drafting another lineman, Pipkins could end up as the sixth man on the line. Now, you can justify keeping that kind of salary for a swing tackle if you're contending for a Super Bowl. And depth is at a premium. But the Chargers aren't there yet. If they move him before June 1st, they save $6.7 million in cap space. That's real money. Now let's talk about the most controversial name on this list, Quentin Johnston. Yeah, I know. Some of you just rolled your eyes. Look, I get it. The guy has been frustrating. The concentration drops, inconsistency, missed big plays, it's all been there. But before we write the guy off, let's remember he's 23 years old. He's coming off a season where he caught 55 balls for 711 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's not bust-level production. It's just not what you want from a first-rounder. But here's where things get tricky. If the Chargers fall in love with one of the top receivers in this draft, someone like Troy Franklin or Adonai Mitchell, and that player falls into range, maybe Johnston becomes a chip to move up. A team might look at Johnston, see a still developing wideout with size and speed, and say, we can work with that, especially if they run a system that fits him better than LA's does. You package him with a late-round pick, maybe you jump a few spots, maybe you land a true WR1, and suddenly you've reset your receiver room. Again, not likely, but not impossible. So the bottom line, this roster is still in transition. Whether it's Salyer, Zion, Pipkins, or even Johnston, don't be shocked if one or more of those names ends up on the move this week. So what do you think? Which of these guys is most likely to be dealt? Who do you want to see stay? Or are there other names we're not talking about that could surprise us? Drop your thoughts in the comments.